Jeudi, c'est 8 novembre 2024. Mesdames et messieurs, gros point yo cap dominé actualité à matin. Nous charger avec des nouvelles. Nous charger avec nouvelles. Et nouvelles yo pas douce du tout matin. C'est nos périodes côté que nous pral obligé préparer nous pour nous commencer nouvelles yo. Mesdames et messieurs, faut que moi dis non cyclone non déjà commencé dans le pays États-Unis. Les m'a parlé de cyclone non, m'a parlé de cyclone républicain yo qui déjà commencé dans le pays États-Unis. C'est le cas de un programme Biden te mette pour immigrants yo. Eh bien, un juge dans le pays États-Unis déjà éliminé hier pendant que n'a parlé là hier bien tard de l'après-midi, un juge éliminé un programme Biden te mette pour immigrants illégaux yo. Donc, n'a Donald Trump qui déjà nommé Suzy Wiles comme moun kap nan poste et chef cabinet dans Maison Blanche là. Mesdames et messieurs, les nouvelles sont mauvaises. Donald Trump a affirmé que pas gain prix pour projet expulsion massive qu'il te promet là. Dans une interview exclusive il te gain avec NBC News, Trump parlait de promesses campagne pour procéder à la plus grande déportation d'immigrants de l'histoire des États-Unis, quel que soit le coût, quel que soit le prix, ça pourra le payer. Donald Trump dit pas de personne qui a empêché pour ne pas faire ça, il te dit il le faire. Ça ne relève déportation massive là, mesdames et messieurs. Programme Donald Trump gagné, programme budgétaire Donald Trump là, et l'a fait face avec sa donc yon programme et l'a fait face avec un défi budgétaire. OK, programme économique Trump là, quand elle dit il va réduire taxe bien sous TEP, la réduit taxe sur overtime, on paquet de taxes li dit la réduit la couper plusieurs côtés, mais il va le faire face avec ça un défi budgétaire. Les grandes questions à poser, est-ce que Donald Trump pral gen suffisamment l'argent pour capable dire toute taxe la réduire? Est-ce que ça va pas effondrer pays les États-Unis? L'aime dit nous ça, bagay yo en pile. 2 millions de moun risquent perdre assurance maladie yo après victoire Donald Trump selon NBC News. Subvention pour acheter une assurance et sous marché et Federal Care Act l'État doit expirer dans fin année 2025. Si li pas prolongé, mais couverture ça capable de devenir inabordable pour un pile moun. Ça veut dire pile moun te gen ti moyen subvention gouvernement Joe Biden nan te bay et dans 2025 lan cap expiré. Mais mesdames et messieurs, tout le monde sa yo gen chance pour yo rete là sans yo pas gen assurance maladie. En tous les cas, nous faisons choix, nous continuer et responsabilité. Nous avons Vladimir Poutine qui félicite Donald Trump et il a affirmé que là aussi prêt pour le capable de dialoguer. Et dans la même interview, ça, Donald Trump lui-même avec NBC News, il fait connaître qu'il parler avec Vladimir Poutine et même Jean te dit dans 24 heures, guerre en Ukraine, l'a obligé de camper. Donc, pour gagner ça à camper, l'Ukraine a obligé de céder quelques terrains et c'est une raison de Donald Trump, c'est un moyen de Donald Trump prévoit pour l'utiliser pour l'État aimer camper guerre ça. Ça veut dire terrain là où si t'es déjà prêt, fait Ukraine, fait là aussi cadeau et puis pour travail capable commencer. Là aussi, il a déjà félicité président Donald Trump. C'est ça Poutine fait connaître. Il félicite Donald Trump et affirme que il est prêt pour commencer dialogue avec président républicain. Yon employé qui dans le gouvernement actuel là, monsieur c'est Parol, lui c'est directeur général donc de réserve fédérale. Donc monsieur déclaré lui-même, lui pas prêt pour le capable démissionner dans poste li. Si toutefois Donald Trump t'a demandé pour l'aller, lui-même lui dit, lui pas fait yon pakita, lui pas fait yon panago parce que réserve pays a, lui pas gen el pa vle la gueule bay républicain yo contrôler. Mesdames et messieurs, m'a rappelé que pays a rouge parce que yo contrôle chambre mais yo contrôle sénat et yo contrôle également parti et yo contrôle député également donc chambre des représentants yo contrôle également ça veut dire c'est républicain en haut républicain en bas républicain derrière devant pas grand rien Donald Trump veut faire li pas fait et l'aime dit contrôler là c'est pas contrôler avec deux trois green vote non mesdames et messieurs c'est contrôler catégoriquement bagay qui me pral kito ou là ça veut dire bagay yo difficile pour les États-Unis d'Amérique dans le dernier moment. Donc, même m'a dit nous même qui c'est businessman, nous même qui gain business, qui fait ce business nous pas besoin de fatiguer parce que tout le monde qui n'a fait cob pour le faire cob dans le pays. Donc, monde qui pas la donne malheureux pas la donne, pouvoir ça pas pouvoir malheureux, il pas rien pour louer avec malheureux. OK, quittez ça sous contre grand nèg yo malheureux pas la donne. Donc, non républicain malheureux pas la donne, mesdames et messieurs. En tous les cas, c'est choix peuple a fait, mais yo obligé assumer responsabilité yo, mais l'aime dit nous ça pour aller en pile courir dans pays. Donc, nous avons Karine Jean-Pierre, qui est directeur, qui est secrétaire en dans palais Maison Blanche là. Mais mesdames et messieurs, Karine Jean-Pierre, lui confirmé président Joe Biden pas gain intention faire petit garçon là que les Hunter Biden grâce parce que démocrate c'est rancé après avec la politique, yo pense politique non jouer avec moun, c'est grâce yo vinn faire yo même et mais elle dit yo pas faire propre petite par la grâce pour yo ka elle paraître bon moun. Et mais quitter le boulet prison garçon, pas gain problème parce que république yo pas non jouer yo même, c'est craser briser qui vinn fait là. Pral gen 4 ans garçon pas campé dans pays États-Unis. M'abdou en parlant de Karine Jean-Pierre dans premier briefing Karine Jean-Pierre te gen hier là, c'était de l'eau dans les yeux et m'abdi nous journalistes qui a posé question, c'est avec l'âme aux yeux. Personne pas capable comprendre côté moun ça au sorti qui votait Donald Trump là. Pas gen moun connaît côté au sorti. Est-ce que c'est américain yo? Est-ce que c'est chinois yo? Est-ce que c'est russe yo? Qui moun yo? Qui moun yo? Parce que pas gen moun comprendre bagay ça. Car une Jean-Pierre t'a promettre dans quelques semaines, quelques mois, même années, tout moun a connaît ça qui t'est passé. En tous les cas, Joe Biden lui-même lui fait la meilleure des choses. Parti démocrate l'a demandé le bail vague, lui dit lui-même puisque c'est ça qui est bon pour nation, lui te fait mais je dis à assumer responsabilité nous, mesdames et messieurs. Moi-même et franchement me dit nous, me tape tout pas jamais dans politique encore. Comment élection fini? Donc finalement, m'pas que gain vote cap contrôler encore parce que mesdames et messieurs, est-ce que gain vote cap contrôler toujours? Nous garder nous là et yo a 211 et puis non, Chambre des représentants, il y a 211, Parti démocrate là 199 et l'enrivé bon côté maintenant sénateur il y a 52 sénateurs qui déjà élus. Mais nous gagné pour Parti démocrate là 45. Mesdames et messieurs, ça veut dire c'est pas deux green moun qui fait différence là. Si Donald Trump veut faire bagaille, pas de personne qui peut empêcher le faire ni dans Sénat, ni dans Parti député mais ni dans présidence là, yo gen contrôle tout pays en général, mais ça que le fait là, c'est celle papa bon Dieu qui connaît MP. Et on peut saluer nous matin. Non, m'a fait ça, m'a fait. Bonjour, bonsoir à tout le monde, comment nous y est? Moi espérant en forme si n'a regardé vidéo ça, nous là toujours et nous dit papa bon Dieu qui est dans ciel là, un gros merci qui fait un cadeau un jour en plus. Non pas c'est MPH, zanmi mi relem MP. Et les ni ma belle mamie relem MPP, l'autre boule sucre toujours à chercher yo non pour yo bon moins. C'est tout au plaisir pour me passer pour me fournir une information. Soit à peine vini sur channel YouTube ou peut-être là ou capable sur MPH ou capable sur HPM et bien moi encourager mesdames et messieurs pour capable garder est-ce que ouais bouton subscribe là, est-ce que ouais si ouais bouton subscribe là pendant vous regarder vidéo c'est que vous pouvez abonner parce que quand pile monde cap écrit cap dit MP pas kon si m'abonner ak si m'pas abonner non petit gâteau. Et m'a dit mamie mais comment faire connaître sur abonner ou regarder pendant ou regarder vidéo non là garder pour est-ce que ouais gon bouton qui marqué subscribe en bas ouais et oui et bien pour elle qu'on peut abonner cliquez sur bouton ça automatiquement fin cliquer sur bouton ça là bas une cloche notification cliquez sur cloche notification là bas 3 options pour une première option qui c'est tout comme ça mamie à chaque fois petit garçon monte une vidéo ou a joindre notification pas jamais oublier la un like en bas vidéo ça. Gen moun qui t'a dit tout MPH, nous vivons un petit cob là fait la vie, nous pas côté pour nous voir Eli. Oui, c'est YouTube qui t'a bloqué ça, mais hier soir le débloqué. Si toutefois vous voulez aider moi, ou capable toujours aider moi. M'a dit moun l'huile bénédiction yo, moun l'huile de prospérité yo. Et mais mesdames et messieurs, moun qui te fait devant yo, les 7 devant yo aller reste yo. Donc au cours de semaine qu'apontra n'a voulu tout aller net ou même qui te fait commande là ensemble avec nous. Donc ou pral joindre très prochainement. So, qui ça pour nous dire encore? Qui ça pour nous dire encore? On entre dans détail yo, on nous rentre dans détail information pour matin. Et nouvelle yo pour moi-même, m'pa gen bonne là-dedans du tout non. M'pa connaît pour l'autre côté, mais pour qu'on y a là, m'pa gen bonne là-dedans du tout. Mais n'a commencé prendre par cyclone nan qui commençait. Mesdames et messieurs, la justice jeune lumière rouge devant yo pas peur, y a attaqué, yo commencé à attaquer, mais programme Joe Biden yo sérieusement. Ça qui l'aide dans dossier c'est que non plus bel programme Biden non, plus belle là, l'aime du plus belle là et c'est plus belle là, ça veut dire programme qui plus paraît légitime non. Ça li un petit peu bail qu'est sauté mais nous pas ta besoin de qu'est sauté m'pense c'est préparer pour ça pour arriver parce que m'pas bon menti donc c'est plan n'a chercher n'a continuer informer pour nous qui ça plus bon pour nous capable dire parce que pas personne qui gagne espoir que Donald Trump t'a quitter programme Biden non li là donc bon Dieu pas aucun miracle non li pas qu'à faire mais pas monde qui gagne garantie ça que Donald Trump lui-même li t'a quitter programme Biden non mais il continue course li. OK et si l'Éternel voulait qu'elle fait volonté li, c'est ça seulement nos cap dit. Donc yon juge dans la cour États-Unis, voyez jeter bien loin hier mesdames et messieurs, non poubelle et le verbe utilisé c'est le verbe éliminer. Yon juge éliminer programme Biden pour les conjoints sans papier. Ça ne le programme Parol mais puis comment pour la me quoi c'est PIP à parole une place là, c'est lui-même yon juge getan éliminé complètement hier. Qui ça juge l'a dit, c'est détail ça m'braloué ensemble avec là, yon juge fédéral que dans la cour Texas exactement côté gen bon républicain yon juge fédéral dans la cour Texas et validé hier jeudi yon nouveau programme administration Biden nan et qui te cherché ouvrir une voie à citoyenneté américaine à des centaines de milliers d'immigrants sans papier qui mariés à des citoyens américains. Décision ça li rend par juge J. Kempel Becker dans le tribunal fédéral district Est Texas. Il intervient quelques mois après que 16 États qui dirigés par républicains sous la conduite du procureur général Texas Ken Paxton, ont déposé une plainte qui affirmait que l'administration Biden non, li pas de autorité légale pour te mettre en œuvre programme ça. Dans mois d'août là, juge Baker était temporairement bloqué initiative là quelques jours seulement après que programme non lui-même était rentré en vigueur. Automatiquement Donald Trump lui-même li gain pouvoir mais juge là li éliminé complètement mais programme ça. Hier jeudi dans décision 74 pages, il t'a expliqué que l'administration Biden n'a pas de autorité pour te créer programme Parol là mais qui t'a peu de chance en série de monde pour y rester en place dans pays États-Unis sans que yo pas rentrer dans Parol yo et en place l'entrée en fonction du président élu Trump en janvier. Donc, qui aurait peu de chances de rester en place après entrer en fonction président Trump, donc dans le mois de janvier. Ça veut dire, un programme, nous connaissons automatiquement Donald Trump lui-même, il est arrivé dans le mois de janvier. Oui, Donald Trump était capable de camper programme ça, mais monsieur, il pas tant Donald Trump venu dans parlant pile, mais il a commencé à éteindre lumière sous programme Biden. M'a dit que c'est un programme qui était plus légitime. M'pa dit programme Parol là pas légitime. Programme Parol là, c'est un programme discrétionnaire. Gouvernement lui-même li prend décision, li mettel. OK, il prend décision, li mettel. Donc Moun qui rentre dans le programme Parol là, ce sont des moun qui pas gain aucune connexion, ça veut dire pas besoin de connexion familiale aux États-Unis pour te rentrer dans Parol là, on zami te ka appliquer pour etc. Mais moun sa yo Parol sa yo campé a, ce sont des moun qui gagne mari yo ou bien madame yo, c'est citoyen américain. Mari yo ou bien madame yo, c'est citoyen américain. Cap travail qui gagne plusieurs années dans le pays, cap contribuer dans l'économie pays, et tandis que ce programme, ça, bien, mesdames et messieurs, yo éliminé en premier. Pendant ma parole là, programme ça était là, li pas là encore, et il y a des gens qui ont demandé est-ce que Biden a fait appel? Non, dans dernière limite là, c'est temps perdu. Démocrate, c'est à refaire la classe, donc là, pas gain aucun effet appel. En règle générale, immigrants yo te rentré illégalement aux États-Unis, yo doit quitter pays pour yo capable recevoir un cadvet, ça prend des années. Programme Biden te mette en place depuis une semaine non, l'État permet à moun qui marie avec des citoyens américains pour rester dans le pays pour accorder ça système immigration relais libération conditionnelle. Yon statut qui protège également pour yo pas triver déporter moun sa yo. Ça veut dire là, mesdames et messieurs, mais ça qui le passer là, et bien automatiquement Donald Trump monte. Premier bagage Donald Trump pour le faire, c'est déporter. On paquet nèg qui gen madame yo là, c'est déporter yo. On paquet moun qui gen mari yo là, mais c'est premier bagage Donald Trump pour le faire, c'est déporter moun sa yo, voye yo retourner dans pays côté où t'es sorti. Quel que soit pays où t'es sorti, ou obligé retourner là-dedans parce que programme Parol in place la campé et automatiquement le campéen bagala pral du. Alors nous voter Donald Trump, ça veut dire nous pas besoin madame nous rester avec nous. Nous voter Donald Trump, nous te veut dire pas besoin mari nous rester avec nous, mais il y a déporté yo pour nous-mêmes parce que nous te dit donc c'est économie plus intéressée. Mais OK, ma pour qu'on toi pral pour un clé coup. Donc si c'est économie plus intéressé, c'est Trump pour te voter, yo bon Trump pour non plamer, jodi alors besoin pour un clé coup ou obligé payer un billet pour rentrer à Haïti parce que yo pral déporter madame. Qui moun yo est? C'est pas ou même qui rentre illégal là, qui te rentre légal là. OK, ou te de madame mariée. Ou même que ma ou tal marié avant Haïti ce domaine ou même qui rentre avec un visa K1 ou pas la donne et pas ou même non y a déporté c'est moun sa qui aux États-Unis qui rentre illégal qui joue non blanc prend yo qui joue non gringo prend yo qui joue non citoyen qui citizen prend yo c'est moun sa qu'on y a qui prêté illégal qui était déjà illégal y a déporté yo. Les États dirigés par les républicains ont déclaré que l'effort ça non seulement créer des coûts pour l'État, mais il constitue également un attrait pour migrants. Le tribunal vient accéder à demander abroger programme illégal libération conditionnelle ça qui te mettait en place par l'administration Biden qui te permet à étrangers qui en situation irrégulière rester dans pays noir après te fin traverser frontières, c'est une énorme victoire pour l'état des droits. C'est ça, et Andrew Bailey déclaré sur les réseaux sociaux qui s'est procuré général dans Missouri, qui c'est une non-état qui t'a contribué à dépôt de plainte ça. Avocat qui travaille avec migrants qui te soutenu l'initiative là, yo déclaré que décision li constitue un coup dur pour un système immigration qui déjà en prise avec bien plus de cas et yo même yo pas capable de traiter. Yo dit c'est extrêmement décevant parce qu'il s'agit d'une série de monde qui là depuis de nombreuses années, des monde qui t'a pral progresser dans le système immigration d'après Don Benger qui sont avocats spécialisés dans l'affaire immigration, li soumettent une note en faveur politique administration Biden avant annonce lien. Désormais c'est ça le déclaré, dossier yo apprend en pile année et y a engorgé encore davantage et système. Rebecca Shee qui est directrice American Business Immigration Coalition qui te défend le programme non, lui déclaré que le programme c'était une tentative mal visée. Donc, à un moment donné, dirigeant républicain doit représenter toute famille dans l'État au lieu d'opposer à toute mesure raisonnable qui a été prise. C'est ça le déclaré dans un courriel. Sondage montre que 41% électeurs donc, de Donald Trump qui est favorable à un statut légal pour conjoint sans papier et qui pagent papier et qui pagent papier qui sont des citoyens américains. Donc, citoyens américains, ça veut dire qu'il y a madame illégale, malheureusement. Malheureusement, c'est ça sondage montré dans l'électeur Donald Trump qui est favorable à un statut légal pour les conjoints sans papier des citoyens américains. Est-ce qu'on entend de ça sondage dit? 41% dans l'électeur Donald Trump, ce sont des gens qui étaient éligibles pour le programme ça à tout. OK? 41% électeurs Donald Trump, ce sont des gens qui étaient éligibles pour le programme ça à tout. Et bien, même, moi, comment on va le faire? L'administration Biden n'a pas répondu à aucun commentaire immédiatement après que le juge là lui-même te prend décision pour te camper programme ça. Et bien, président Joe Biden lui-même te metti. Mais on va que m'a dit nous, mesdames et messieurs, et les États-Unis pas jamais joindre un président aussi loyal que le président ça qui est Joe Biden. Oui, n'a pas toujours un président, pays a toujours existé, mais un négocie sage que Joe Biden l'a compliqué pour les États-Unis, mais joindre un monde comme ça. Moi-même, mesdames et messieurs, malheureusement, si je ne nouvelle là, c'est que moi, à fort du mal, moi, obligé baou nouvelle là. OK, faut bon nouvelle là, j'en nouvelle là, y a pour qu'on qui ça va fait. Mes amis, et m'te dit nous, moi-même, depuis longtemps, m'a ba un petit conseil, si ça arrive bien, si ça arrive mal, ça pour nous faire. M'te dit les jeunes qui sortent de domaine surtout, pas prendre tout ça, non gain acheter rad, acheter pile rad, acheter ceci, acheter cela, semble petit cop nous, make sure non gain petit cop de côté, make sure non gain petit cop de côté. M'comprendre rad là important, mais make sure non gain petit cop de côté. Et seul papa Boudjou qui connaît qui ça pral passer. Au sujet de premier discours, Donald Trump là, et Donald Trump te présenté dame ça qui c'est Suzy, et bien Suzy Walls et Donald Trump nommé madame ça lui-même et comme poste chef cabinet, non poste chef cabinet Maison Blanche là. Et le président Elimine donc il tourne vers principal assistant politique là pour occuper un poste clé dans Maison Blanche. Donc c'est madame ça et qui serve Donald Trump là. Derrière tout ça Donald Trump a fait là, c'est lui-même qui tout ça. C'est lui-même qui derrière tout ça, c'est Suzy. OK, c'est Suzy. Président élu Donald Trump lui nommé hier jeudi à Suzy Walls qui c'est stratège et dans l'État Floride qui dirigeait opération politique yo depuis près de 4 ans dans poste chef cabinet Maison Blanche pour nouvelle administration Donald Trump pral gen là. Il s'agit de la première annonce d'emploi qui est faite, cette première annonce d'emploi. Et bien, Donald Trump lui-même l'a fait depuis victoire dans l'élection qui se passe mardi. Et conseiller Lio tapton avec un pile impatience pour être capable de commencer à dévoiler, mais qui moun li pral mette dans gros rang yo, dans gouvernement pour monsieur te commencer peupler gros rang yo, chef ceci, chef intel, ministre ceci. Donc c'est ça qui pral passer là, directeur X, directeur Y, c'est ça qui pral passer là, mesdames et messieurs, quoi me souveler dans DHS, nous pral de l'autre monde, dans USCS, nous pral de l'autre monde, c'est comme ça des blozay là pral commencer débraquer sous nous. Donc les ex-directeur ICE qui parlait de comment déportation massive là capable faire tout, si m'gon ti chance ma quitter n'tendel. Donc madame Walls, Trump fait appel à une collaboratrice qu'elle connaît bien et qui travaille en étroite collaboration avec lui, qui comprend le mode fonctionnement, qui proche famine et à laquelle la plupart des membres de son équipe actuelle sont très fidèles. C'est lui-même qui a première femme qui a occupé poste ça. Madame Walls lui montre qu'elle était capable de survivre dans le style gestion chaotique Donald Trump qui te conduit le changer chef de cabinet à 4 reprises au cours de premier mandat. Il te travaille sous campagne Donald Trump en 2016 et en 2020, mais à des postes qui étaient moins importants. Mais c'est Trump relève pour le cap diriger opération politique dans début 2021, puis après que lui-même était quitté fonction en disgrâce, après qu'elle était tenté renverser c'est élection 2020. Lycée seule directrice campagne qui était survécu à une campagne entière pendant le travail pour lui. Donc c'est la première fois Donald Trump utilisait un monde tout entière mais pendant toute campagne la net. Suzy, li très dur, li intelligente, li innovante et puis li universellement admiré et respecté. Donc Trump dans un communiqué l'annoncé décision là, il dit moi pas aucun doute que la prendre pays a très fier. Décision pour le choisir, décision de choisir quelqu'un de son entourage proche contraste fortement avec Choual après première victoire présidentielle en 2016. Et il avait alors choisi quelqu'un avec qui il avait peu d'expérience, blablabla. Donc il a dit, monsieur te gagné première fois, donc c'est pas moun qui te connaît, qu'on y a la fonctionnaire avec moun qui connaît. La plupart des membres entourage Trump et yo souhaitait que Madame Walz, que Madame Walz, c'est lui-même qui était en place ça. Donc, il était entretenu des relations étroites avec vice-président Elian Tout, J.D. Vance, avec famille et Donald Trump, notamment avec deux petits garçons, Donald Trump Jr. avec Eric. Nomination pour le permettre de faire avancer processus transition. Donc, dans le prochain jour, Trump ta doit commencer à examiner non moun kap nan chef cabinet non poste qui plus important dans le gouvernement, notamment moun kap nan chef cabinet. Madame Walz qui se fille légende football américain Pat Summerall, li pas issu de la base politique extrême droite de M. Trump, mais lui permet à Donald Trump continuer à fonctionner alors qu'elle t'a suivi et dans tout dossier pénal non connaît qui était sous tête Donald Trump. Walz li te soutenu effort président Trump te fait pour élargir coalition dans l'élection générale au-delà de la base blanche plus âgée. Donc, c'est un monde qui rare des femmes qui devenus proches dirigeants et mouvement MAGA, tout entretenant des relations avec certains membres de la vieille garde de M. Trump. Donc, voilà. Donc, c'est pas facile pour une femme marcher près Lyon ça, mais Walz lui-même, lui fait ça très bien. Le chef cabinet est crucial dans toute Maison Blanche et lui servi traditionnellement de gardien, de pilote de gardien et de pilote du programme du président. Il est souvent décrit comme deuxième poste qui est plus puissant dans Washington après la présidence. Mais Trump, dont le modèle de leadership de son secteur immobilier était peu hiérarchisé, n'a jamais compris ce rôle et s'est opposé aux efforts visant à créer un processus ordonné. Donc Donald Trump pas qui respectait et place ça même avec business li, mais c'est ta place qui deuxième place moun qui vini après président, c'est lui-même dame ça, lui-même libéral occupé là, mesdames et messieurs. Donc et le président le précédent choix de M. Trump donc pour poste chef d'état-major là pas aucun sens, il était choisi soit parce qu'il était gagné et des recommandés par des républicains, des rorans, etc. Donc, année ça, nous pral petit, comment Donald Trump lui-même, il pral comment continuer choisir moun yo. Mais pour qu'on y a un résumé, mesdames et messieurs, Sam Cardino, c'est Suzy Walz, mais c'est lui-même qui déjà connaît lui-même, qui poste, il pral jouer dans le gouvernement Donald Trump là, et nous connaissons Elon Musk déjà connaît tout lui-même qui poste libéral jouer, libéral là pour surveiller bonne marche et gouvernement, et John Kennedy Jr. qui te rejoint Donald Trump lui-même tout. Donc nous déjà connaissons yo pral mettre dans le ministère de la santé, quand Donald Trump gagne un projet pour le capable éliminer le ministère de l'éducation. Anyway, n'a suivre comment bagay yo pral yé. Donald Trump li affirmé que pas gain prix pour projet expulsion massive là et c'est NBC qui porte nouvelle là, c'est un média pour démocrate que yo et tout média ça yo tout net yo nan gros yo pas senti yo bien. Donc il dit fait que c'est Donald Trump qui gagne l'élection mais yo t'est rentré fait une interview avec Donald Trump parce qu'actuellement Donald Trump c'est le président de tous les Américains sans distinction, lui doit tout monde service et qu'elle voulait qu'elle pas voulait. Dans une interview interview exclusive avec NBC News, Trump lui parlait de promesses campagne pour procéder à les plus grandes déportations immigrants dans l'histoire des États-Unis. Ça veut dire Donald Trump continue à faire promesses là pour déporter plus de monde qu'aucun président.
Let's bring in moderator of Meet the Press, Kristen Welker. Kristen, we know you just spoke exclusively with the president-elect on the phone, and you asked him about his calls with President Biden, Vice President Harris. How did those conversations go? What should we know?
Well, Zinkley and Kate, first of all, former President Trump, President-elect Trump, saying he believes he has a mandate in the wake of his decisive victory. Here's what he said. He said, quote, "It's a mandate to bring common sense back to the country." As you just said, I did ask him about his phone calls with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. He described them as very nice calls.
Donc, monsieur fait connaître son mandat pour porter common sense back dans pays ça.
Very respectful both ways. He said that when he spoke with the vice president, she talked about a transition. She'd like to see it be smooth as can be. And I agree with that, he said. 100%. He said it was a very, very friendly.
Kamala Harris tout et Kamala Harris te parlé comment qu'elle prêt pour le capable faire transition très smooth, ça veut dire très facile pour lui, très easy avec équipe client et Donald Trump dit lui très content ça et l'apprécier ça.
Call. He said his call with President Biden echoed that call with the vice president, and he said that the two are planning to have lunch in the near future. So,
donc yo planifié pour yo ta prendre lunch ensemble tout, donc avant que Biden allait. Donc on connaît faut que lui inviter monsieur pour venir manger ensemble avec lui. Donc lui prêt pour venir.
Just some notable details as he prepares for this transition. I asked him what he wants to do with that mandate. I said, look, you've been talking about immigration, you've been talking about your tariff plan, and he really highlighted the need to make the border safe and secure, indicated that would be among the first orders of business that he would tackle. And I asked him, well, what is the price tag to this mass deportation plan that you have talked about? What specifically would it look like? How would it work? And he said, there is no price tag. You have no choice. So that.
Donc, là, yo demandé monsieur qui pris et dossier déportation massive là, dit là ou pas gain choix, donc pas gain prix. Donc c'est premier bagage li pral faire automatiquement l'arrivée dans mois janvier, c'est sécuriser mes frontières yo et arranger frontières yo et puis déportation massive là par.
That was another really notable part of our conversation. This was a brief conversation, lasted about 15 minutes. He notably said he's spoken to about 70 world leaders. I said 70? He said, yeah, about 70, including President Zelensky. He said he hasn't yet spoken with President Putin, but anticipates that he will.
Il déjà parlé avec 70 leaders mondiaux et là-dedans yo, il parlé avec Zelensky également.
Do so. Of course, he's talked about wanting
il peut parler avec Vladimir Poutine, mais il a fait ça très prochainement.
To end that war within 24 hours. A lot of people hear that and say,
et il toujours mentionné que pour terminer guerre Ukraine dans 24 heures.
well, that would mean that Zelensky, Ukraine would have to give up some territory.
Ça veut dire Zelensky dans Ukraine, yo doit abandonner quelques territoires.
He has been quite defiant, though. He believes he can get that done. So we'll continue to track that, but a really notable conversation with the new president-elect.
And Kristen, you've spoken with the president-elect many times over the years, on camera, off camera. How did he sound to you today compared to previous interviews? Can you give us a vibe check?
It's a great question, Kate. He sounded quite bullish in the wake of his decisive victory. He talked about the fact that there has been what some are calling a realignment, the fact that you did see an increase in support for him amongst various groups, from Latinos to young men, low propensity voters, which we called them on election night, as well as even some women who came out in larger numbers than you.
Et donc la comparé conversation le qu'on gagne avec Donald Trump avec conversation donc le gagne qu'on y a donc monsieur ka semble le bullish donc because ça passé c'est que Donald Trump pas même pensé le tap élection dans façon ça. Donald Trump t'es toujours à crier à la défense, t'es toujours pensé qu'il y a fraude, qu'il y a ceci, qu'il y a cela, c'est lui-même qui a perdu. Et puis à son grand étonnement, regardez l'Ouest, c'est lui-même, yo bail élection, Trump pas même capable de comprendre comment bagay ça a fait lui-même.
you would anticipate. And so it was a really notable conversation, and it's clear he believes, again, that there is a mandate. He talked about the fact that Republicans now control the Senate. He said he's very honored by that, honored by the role he believes he played in helping to make that happen, and of course continues, like the rest of us, to watch what will happen in the House quite closely to see if, in fact, Republicans do control all two chambers of Congress as well as the White House.
I heard you asked also if Susie Wiles, his campaign head, will be the chief of staff. What did he say?
I did. I asked him about that. He had very strong things to say about her. He said she would certainly be a contender. She's great. I said, Senator Tom Cotton, we are hearing, is not going to enter the administration. It's our understanding that he's looking at a potential leadership post in the Senate. And he had some very positive things to say about Senator Cotton as well. No surprise, Senator Cotton's been one of his top allies. He says, I think he's fantastic, somebody that I would think of to join his administration. But he's a very important senator. And I hate to take people out of the Senate. So he also said Senator Cotton is someone who he thinks a lot.
Donc, il y a mon dans Sénat pour faire sénateur li bien remet, pour t'apprendre faire partie cabinet, c'est mon qui très important, mais malgré ça, li pas remet mais retirer moun dans Sénat. C'est ça que cap dit dans journal là, président Donald Trump li déclaré by NBC News que une nan première priorité li, c'est prise de l'elle prend fonction dans janvier là, c'est rendre frontière solide et rendre puissante. Interroger sous promesse campagne pour le procéder à sa expulsion massive là. Donald Trump déclare que l'administration là, li pas gen l'autre choix que pour le mettre dossier administration massive là en exécution. Trump déclare qu'elle considère victoire écrasante li sous vice-président Kamala Harris comme un mandat pour le porter un bon sens dans pays. Nous devons évidemment rendre frontière la solide puissant. En même temps, nous devons vouloir que moun yo vini dans pays. C'est ça le déclarer au vin légal. Et vous savez, je ne suis pas quelqu'un qui dit non, vous ne pouvez pas rentrer. Nous voulons que les gens viennent. Moi pas un monde qui dit non, me pas vle moun vin dans pays. Non, moi vle moun yo vini, moi vle yo vini légal. Est-ce que ça t'a vle dire que sous administration de Donald Trump là pral gen plus visa qui bail? En tant que candidat, Trump te promet à plusieurs reprises pour te mener donc une plus grande opération expulsion de l'histoire américaine, interroger le sous-courant. Donc ça pas gain prix, ça veut dire Donald Trump promet, mesdames et messieurs, dossier expulsion et déportation, c'est bagaille automatiquement li paraît dans mois janvier, c'est premier bagaille l'a fait là. Programme Donald Trump te gagné également. Conseiller président Elimine Trump, républicain dans Capitole, il a cherché déjà des moyens pour réduire certaines de ses idées les plus coûteuses. Donc, il y a pile promesse qui t'est faite. Jean Capabouel dans campagne, promesse campagne là, pas de taxe sous TEP, pas de taxe sous overtime, pas de taxe pour 10 et pour date, pas d'impôt sur les pour boire, moins d'impôt donc sur les sociétés, pas d'impôt sur les prestations de sécurité sociale. Et série de réductions impôts proposées par le président Elimine Donald Trump au cours de campagne victorieuse Lyon, sous forme slogan vaguement défini, yo pral koun y a fait face à un examen budgétaire dans Washington, alors que républicains yo même yo sous point pour yo contrôler deux chambres congrès yo, ka pour ouvrir voie à plan Donald Trump yo. Ça veut dire Donald Trump pral plus facile pour ka prendre n'importe décision parce que Jean wap gade là mesdames et messieurs et Jean wap gade là en l'air ou après que là c'est républicain qui dans chambre des représentants, là c'est président 295 contre 226 pour Harris et là dans Sénat gagné 52 sénateurs et pour républicains contre 45 pour les démocrates. Ça veut dire pas aucune possibilité là pour moun sa yo et yo pas contrôler tous les deux chambres. Ambition Donald Trump pour un autre mandat, ça doit finalement rivaliser avec réalisation phare de premier. Donc, Donald Trump pour le faire, ouais, gagne un pile de défis pour le lever. Donc, quand elle pral joindre l'argent pour le faire bagay ça, même pour faire déportation massive là, yo dit ça pral coûter des billions de dollars. Alors, est-ce que gagne quoi pour faire tout ça vrai? Ou du moins comme Joe Biden fait connaître l'équité, yon économie qui bien solide, monsieur a li pral bouremel l'économie ça pour le capable faire travail l'IA. Et puis mauvaise nouvelle, ça li pral frapper ou même là qui te gain temps et gagner ti subvention ça pour assurance maladie. D'après journal NBC News, des millions de monde risquent perdre assurance maladie après victoire Donald Trump là. Subvention pour moun yo te acheté donc yon assurance sous marché a dans ça relè Affordable Care Act là, li pral expirer dans l'année 2025 là. Donc si toutefois bagay ça ou pas prolongé, couverture ça yo a devenu inabordable pour un pile moun dossier assurance de maladie. Ça c'était programme Kamala Harris, c'est Kamala Harris qui te gagné projet ça. Donald Trump pas jamais gagné projet ça et non sûr certain que Donald Trump a pile possibilité pour le pas renouveler projet ça. Et that's why, donc subvention sont cap expirer dans l'année 2025 là, yo sorti non plan sauvetage américain 2021 et qui augmentait montant aide qui disponible pour une série de monde qui souhaitait souscrire une assurance maladie dans cadre Affordable Care Act. Plan sauvetage américain li également élargi nombre de monde qui éligible à subvention. Donc, les intendants et de nombreuses personnes de la classe moyenne. Date expiration imminente signifie que nouveau congrès et prochain président doit décider si on doit prolonger quelque chose que Trump et républicain yo déjà signalé que yo pas soutenu. C'est ça Chris Mickens, analyste recherche en politique santé dans société d'investissement. Donc lui-même l'État fait connaître Donald Trump pas soutenu plan ça. Si républicains ont fini par remporter Chambre des représentants et en plus Sénat et la Maison Blanche avec un succès retentissant GOPA, je pense que chance que y obtiennent pour une prolongation donc li 5%, li inférieur à 5% d'après Miken. Ça veut dire pour ta prolonger Affordable Care Act là, mesdames et messieurs, c'est 5% chance de gagner. Plusieurs élections importantes dans Chambre représentants restent encore à déterminer. Jeudi après-midi, républicains ont remporté 209 sièges, soit 9 de moins que majorité a selon un bulletin NBC News. En 2024, il y a 20 millions de monde qui te bénéficié d'une assurance maladie grâce avec Affordable Care Act là, selon le Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Depuis entrée en vigueur subvention en 2021, inscription dans le plan Affordable Care Act là et paiement réduit à l'été vient doubler. En particulièrement dans l'État rouge du Sud. C'est ça Cynthia Cox déclaré. Ça veut dire moun sa yo qui votait Donald Trump là, c'est même moun qui bénéficiait Affordable Care Act là. Moun yo pas care de la santé yo seulement care Donald Trump pour venir changer l'économie pour yo et Donald Trump pour venir mettre immigrants dehors, c'est ça qui intéresse yo. Comme Trump pour venir mettre immigrants dehors, Donald Trump pour venir faire yo plus fait Donald Trump confiance avec économie solide, eh bien, Joe Biden lui-même l'équité, yo pense ça Joe Biden fait à cette Trump qui capi bien gérer que Kamala Harris, yo voté Donald Trump, mais yo pas jamais pensé avec Affordable Care Act là, cap aider yo pour yo gagner assurance maladie yo, surtout dans l'état rouge yo. Eh bien, mesdames et messieurs, dans l'année qui va rentrer là, n'attend pour nous qui ça va passer, c'est chaque jour n'a gon nouvelle différent, bagay yo pas douce même. Vladimir Poutine qui c'est président pays la Russie, monsieur a fait connaître déjà félicité mais président Donald Trump, président élu Donald Trump pour victoire li et puis il déjà promet que li prêt pour le capable faire discussion yo avec Donald Trump, mesdames et messieurs, de ça qui gagne habitude faire des échanges déjà. Président la Russie Vladimir Poutine li félicité hier jeudi en Donald Trump pour victoire dans l'élection américaine non, li félicité dès qu'il te fait preuve de courage lorsqu'un homme armé a tenté d'assassiner, elle déclarait que Moscou était prête pour dialoguer avec président élien Vladimir Poutine. Dans première déclaration publique depuis la victoire de Trump, Poutine déclarait que Trump s'était comporté comme un vrai homme dans une tentative assassinat contre lui-même alors qu'elle était exprimé dans un rassemblement de campagne dans Pennsylvania. Monsieur était campé pour dire fight fight. Il comportait, à mon avis, de manière donc tout à fait correcte, courageuse, comme un vrai homme. C'est ça Poutine lui-même lui déclaré. Mesdames et messieurs, les États-Unis dans le dernier jour, te connaît Vladimir Poutine comme plus gros ennemi. Je dis à pas ennemi encore, c'est plus bon ami. Alors, c'est choix ça peuple américain fait. Yo déclaré Vladimir Poutine pas ennemi. C'est ça que fait yo voter Donald Trump. Trump a déclaré durant la campagne qu'il est capable de ramener la paix en Ukraine dans les 24 heures si toutefois il était élu. Mais il a donné peu de détails sur la manière dont lui-même il pral fait ça. Chef Kremlin âgé de 72 ans, il pas mettre n'a émis qu'une seule mise en garde. Je ne sais pas ce qui va se passer maintenant. Je n'en ai aucune idée. Donc Kremlin pas aucune idée. Il pas contre qui ça pral passer konille. Donc konille là, yo pral discuter et puis pour joindre un accord comment pour yo même yo camper guerre. Mais Donald Trump lui mandé morceau terre Ukraine perdu yo quitter la Russie et puis camper guerre ça. Donc c'est ça Trump pral dit. Et si la Russie, Ukraine dit non, pas d'accord, mais Donald Trump pas bail yon good à pays qui est l'Ukraine pour que les capable continuer guerre. Il pas vouer zambali non plus pour continuer guerre contre la Russie. Ça no way. Donald Trump pral font bagaille comme ça. Qu'on y a là, Ukraine pral décider. Est-ce que lui-même la remettre terre yo, la quitter terrain yo, bail et pays adverse là et puis lui-même lui continuer dans la paix ou du moins est-ce que la camper en face Donald Trump, la camper en face Vladimir Poutine et puis la bataille. Donc c'est qu'on y a nous pral vraiment est-ce que Ukraine nan li gen garçon nan garçon, c'est qu'on y a nous pral est-ce que guerre ça c'est là aussi qui tape menen ou du moins est-ce que c'est Ukraine qui tape menen, est-ce que c'est l'autre pays qui tape d'elle. Qu'on y a est-ce que l'Europe pral gen suffisamment moyen yo tout pauvre pour tête yo pour yo ka aider Ukraine goumer avec la Russie. Est-ce que yo pral gen moyen ça n'a suivre. C'est pas tout le monde qui est prêt pour abandonner le job. Président américain et nous gagnons Parol qui est directeur général des réserves fédérales là. Mais monsieur ça lui-même lui déclaré lui pas démissionner si Donald Trump t'a demandé pour le quitter poste là. Président de la réserve fédérale c'est Jérôme Parol, lui déclaré que lui-même l'a refusé quitter fonction li et plutôt que prévu. La refusé quitter fonctionne plus tôt que prévu. Si toutefois nouveau président Donald Trump l'État tentait pour être capable faire mandel pour le démissionner. Ajouter qu'elle pas capable de toute façon et pas être légalement destitué. Dans une conférence de presse qui était organisée à l'issue de la dernière réunion du comité fédéral des Open Markets, il a demandé à Powell si toutefois la quitté direction banque centrale, si Trump t'a demandé pour le faire ça. Lui-même qui était attaqué à plusieurs reprises au cours de premier mandat. Powell répond catégoriquement non. Elle soulignait que de mettre de ses fonctions, lui ou tout autre gouverneur de la Fed avant la fin de leur mandat, n'est pas autorisé par la loi. Il n'est pas autorisé par la loi. Parol lui exprimé après que la Fed lui réponde avec des attentes à réduire fourchette cible de taux d'intérêt de 4 points de pourcentage entre 4,5 et 4,7. Allemand de nèg qui fait chiffre pour yo bien expliquer bagay ici là parce que moi-même il faut que moi dis nous moi pas étudier comptabilité actuellement dans banque là juste compte l'argent et mettre professionnel dans dossier l'argent pour être capable de bonne idée. Non gen KJP c'est Catherine Jean-Pierre. Il affirme que président Joe Biden n'a pas gain intention de faire petit garçon de grâce pour fraude fiscale et accusation qu'il y a à ma feuille. Dégagez nous. Petit tout pour pouvoir non mon. Ou voulez faire grâce ou faire grâce tendez frère. Ou pas voulez faire grâce quitter le boulet prison. De toute manière n'a pas si Donald Trump pas fait tête les grâce non même. Et c'est ça me paraît mais avec démocrates. Démocrates ont toujours une série de fiasco y a fait et on pense politique dans tout fiasco ça. Politique pas dans fiasco ça, politique c'est politique. Qu'on y a au président, ou perdu chambre des représentants, ou perdu sénat, ou perdu toute bagaille pendant 4 ans là, nous pas comment ça va le passer. Donc nous gagnons et la haute cour de justice pas sous contrôle ou pas sous contrôle ou c'est l'unique moyen on gagne pour faire un petit garçon grâce ou pas faire ou quitter lui et grâce là tant que son péché lui Bonne chance, attendez, porte-parole Maison Blanche là, Karine Jean-Pierre déclaré que le président Biden n'a pas toujours eu intention de faire grâce à petit garçon qui te plaidé coupable des accusations fiscales. Et plaidoyer contre Biden lié épargné d'un procès public pour non paiement d'impôts alors qu'elle était dépensé sans compte en alors qu'elle était dépensé ça sans compter en drogue escorté et séjour dans l'hôtel de luxe vêtements. C'est gaspillé comme ça au tout côté. Requête là te déposée après que yo te reconnaître les coupables de 3 chefs d'accusation de port d'armes dans le mois de juin. Premier petit garçon là président selon procureur te bay menti sur un formulaire achat d'armes obligatoire pendant te affirmé que l'hypat toxicomane ou bien l'hypat a consommé drogue de manière illégale. Après que on te reconnaître coupable de crime non, président Biden indiquait que lui-même l'hypat gain intention fait petit garçon non grâce. Jeudi et yo te de nouveau mandé à Catherine Jean-Pierre et si toutefois président Biden il a intention de faire grâce à Hunter qui te doit condamné pour accusation d'armes le 12 décembre et pour accusation fraude fiscale le 16 décembre. Donc, on nous a posé cette question à plusieurs reprises. Notre réponse est toujours la même. C'est ça, bien, secrétaire Maison-Blanche, lui-même, lui déclaré, mesdames et messieurs. Mais Karine Jean-Pierre, j'en connais une dit c'est origine haïtienne, c'est en forme à la garçon. Et bien, hier, qui t'a répondu une question, ça, dans le premier briefing, lui t'a gagné, et bien, avec journaliste qui t'a posé, et bien, Karine, en pile question, demandé est-ce que Joe Biden pas de l'autre bagarre, il t'a fait pour te saisi, sauver l'élection. Karine te continue pour le dire, le peuple américain a fait son choix et job pas nous-mêmes, c'est respecter le choix peuple américain. La nouvelle yo pas belle, yo pas douce, mais n'a continué à avancer quand même. Possibilité inondation en République dominicaine et t'as semblé donc là gain pile la pluie cap tomber en République dominicaine, possibilité pour inondation et la étendue jusqu'à dimanche. Donc Saint-Domingue, trust me, et j'ai fait une expérience en République dominicaine. C'était vraiment tragique, mesdames et messieurs. Avant-il que la pluie tombe, tout le pays a inondé net. Tout le pays a inondé. On dit que Saint-Domingue, c'est non trou lié depuis le tombé, depuis tout l'eau, yo vient boucher. Et son bagage qui est extrêmement grave. Et that's why que yo moun wap investi Saint-Domingue, gardez qui côté bien wap investi parce que à n'importe quelle heure ou qu'a perdu tout investissement. Perspective météorologique en République dominicaine, yo capable de devenir très pluvieuse dans prochaine heure et possibilité inondation dans tout le pays à étendre jusqu'à dimanche principalement en raison de influence de plusieurs phénomènes atmosphériques. Mais yon dossier n'a suivre. Nous avons pays dans le pays d'Haïti et nous avons continué à faire par l'empile. Nous avons responsable collectif et parti signateur comme Montana. Nous avons dénoncé garry conille et il dit qui fait rentrer mercenaires dans le pays sans consentement capité. Nous avons militants et anciens prisonniers politiques Chelson Sanon qui portaient précision sur l'attaque la recevoir nommé la police pendant le long de bien long sous Pierre Espérance, Garry Pierre-Paul Charles, Antonio Cherami Didon Kato, Kalo Ekul ministre justice là, li dit qui dé assassiné dans l'idée pour faire même bouche li dans bataille l'a mené pour libérer pays ensemble avec président Guy Philippe, ancien sénateur Guy Philippe, mesdames et messieurs, leader opposition. Hier, et c'était vraiment, on va le conclure avec ça. Hier, c'était vraiment génial, façon que, nous avons Karine Jean-Pierre. C'est Karine Jean-Pierre, toujours dit Catherine, mais c'est Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre, il t'a répondre une question journaliste dans le premier briefing dans Maison Blanche, mesdames et messieurs. Et Mounio t'a posé en pile question pour connaître est-ce que Joe Biden pas senti le gêné, est-ce que Joe Biden pas senti le honte, est-ce que Biden pas gon l'autre bagaille, il était capable de faire pour te empêcher Mounio perdu élection. Karine te répond à plusieurs reprises pour te dire que le peuple américain yo fait choix yo. Et le peuple a fait choix yo même pas gagné, yo capable de faire. Donc yo même yo là pour respecter la loi. En résumé, toute question virée tout gens, moun yo journaliste yo très très désolé, soit regarder visage journaliste yo ou après nèg yo très de pas fini, yo pas jamais penser vraiment c'est comme ça bagarre la t'a pral passer, eh bien yo même y a le voter bon, yo même moi-même qui Karine, m'tap dit bon, c'est nous-mêmes qui votons, nous votons parce que c'est lui-même nous besoin, puisque c'est lui-même nous besoin, c'est lui-même nous joindre, job pas nous qu'on y a, non même c'est font passation de pouvoir pacifique, c'est ça Karine Jean-Pierre, lui-même l'étape dit avec journaliste yo. Et nous votons, c'est lui nous voulons. Et jodi an, t'assemblé moun yo fin faire choix yo, tant que c'est dans dormi yo pas de connaître si ça t'a ba la tap comme ça, yo sorti. Mesdames et messieurs, soit regardez gens élection passé là, c'est un coup et gen moun qui dit yo pense même Joe Biden pas voter Kamala Harris tellement Kamala lui-même li pas fait voix. On dirait même Maril pas voter même tellement lui-même li pas fait voix. Donc on dirait madame nan yo prend yo trahil dans tout sens. M'pa kon sou t'a regarder élection avec sou t'a regarder l'ensemble avec moi sou te live avec moi ou t'a pour Kamala t'a mené un paquet de côté au moment où ba la tête bleue puis yo viré l'en gris au moment le passer rouge. Ça veut dire et Donald Trump pas jamais gon côté le t'a mené ou elle pas mené, il continue mener jusqu'à ce qu'elle gagne élection et Kamala côté le t'a mené yo le perdu. Et jodi an bam qui autant de Karine Jean-Pierre mais qui t'a répondre une question et différents journalistes, mesdames et messieurs. Donc anglais a pas difficile, c'est pas anglais compliqué. Je pense que vous avez bien chance pour comprendre plus fort. Dans ça Karine Jean-Pierre dit parce que je pas capable et interpréter toutes les a déjà fait nos défauts.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Good to welcome back to some of you out there who are on the trail. Good to see you all. Okay, as you just heard from the President Biden, he spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. He also assured him that he would direct his entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power. That is what the American people deserve. He also spoke with the Vice President to congratulate her on a historic, inspiring campaign. And for some people, this election is a time of victory, and others, it's a time of loss. To state the obvious, Tuesday's night's results were not our team's desired outcome. There's going to be a lot of post-mortem analysis of what happened in the coming days, in the coming weeks, even in the coming months. And so I'm going to leave those questions to the election experts. That is certainly not my role today. But what you heard from President Biden is that the struggle for the soul of America since our very founding crosses generations and is always ongoing. It is still important today. The President and the Vice President accept the choice the country has made. And because the President has said this many times, you heard him say this moments ago in the Rose Garden, you can't love your country only when you win, and you can't love your neighbor only when you agree. The President also spoke to the importance of the integrity of the American election system. It's honest, it's fair, and it's transparent. And it can be trusted whether you win or you lose. The President and Vice President are proud to be leaving behind the strongest economy in the world. And the President and the Vice President are proud to have changed America for the better. That's going to be their focus in the upcoming remaining days. You heard the President say that we have 74 days left of his administration, and they are going to make every day count on behalf of the American people, regardless of who voted for them. With that, see?
Thanks, Karine. First off, could you have updated on when the President-elect will come visit the President here?
So as we said in our statement yesterday after the Vice President spoke at Howard University, our teams, the President obviously invited the President-elect to the White House for them to meet. Our teams, their team and our team are working on that, and we certainly will share once we lock something in the near future.
Second, when the President spoke in the Rose Garden a little bit ago, one thing he did not do was take any accountability for his party's defeat on Tuesday night. Does he feel any sense of responsibility for the outcome? Does he feel he should have done things differently through the course of this campaign?
So there's a lot there, and let me, if you don't mind, give me a second to unpack all of this, because I think it's important for the American people to hear this as well. Look, the president has spoken to this, and I'll say it again here. He was certainly inspired by the campaign that the vice president ran. When he decided to pass the torch over to the vice president, you saw the party come right behind her, support her, right after he was able to do that. And it's because she was the right person for the job. You heard him say that in 2020, the reason why he selected her as her running mate, because he knew she would be able to do the job on day one. And you heard that obviously once he decided to pass the torch, which he didn't think about, like give any second thought, right? He thought about it and did it. Like it wasn't something that he gave a second thought to, as I just said. He knew it was the right thing to do. And I would want to say as well is that if you look at the 4 years, almost 3+ years, there are some historic accomplishments that they were able to do together, whether it's beating Big Pharma, now Medicare is able to negotiate, whether it's getting a bipartisan infrastructure law, whether it's the PACT Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure, the Chips and Science Act, thank you so much. These are things that were able to get us out of the pandemic. And you heard me say at the top that the president is proud to leave the strongest economy for the next person that's coming, for the president-elect. And that's what they're going to inherit. But with all of that said, and this gets to your question, despite all of the accomplishments that we were able to get done, there were global headwinds that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously COVID-19 led to disruptions with the supply chain, and it had a political toll on many incumbents. If you look at what happened in 2024 globally, and that's part of what you saw, right? You saw that there was a political toll on incumbent parties around the world here. Now, I'm going to be very mindful and leave the political analysis to the pundits. They're going to dig in, they're going to look under the hood, they're going to see exactly what happened. But what we saw 2 nights ago was not unusual to what we have seen from the incumbencies around the world on the global stage.
To restate my question, does the president feel any responsibility for the outcome?
The president understands that he's going to respect the will of the people. That's what he understands. He understands that the American people made a decision, and he's going to respect that. He believed he made the right decision. When he stepped aside, decided that he wasn't going to run, he automatically... Guys, here's the thing, and we can't rewrite history. We have to remember what happened in 2022. 2022 is a perfect example, actually, because when we came out of 2022 midterms, we saw a successful midterms for any new administration in over 60 years. And it was because of the president's policies. And let's not forget that all of the accomplishments that the president did, again, I had listed the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, Chips and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are popular with the American people. They are. Those policies were indeed popular. And that's what got us through the 2022 midterm. It was supposed to be a red wave. That didn't happen. And so coming out of that, we did see some historic markers there. And so the president believed that he needed to do. He's always going to put the American people first. When he decided to step down and endorse immediately the vice president, that's what he thought was the right thing to do in that moment, in that time.
For me, I'm sure my colleagues have a few unpacked. The president entered office, he said he went around traveling around the world, met he's always would recount this anecdote of, I'd say America is back, and then they would say, but for how long? The world now has that answer. It was 4 years and 2 days. Does the president feel like he has let down America's allies and partners that now someone with a very different worldview than him will now be in the Oval Office?
So look, I'm not going to get into what the president-elect is going to do, not going to do. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is the president's message is going to continue to be the same. American leadership matters. How we conduct ourselves on the global stage matters. We are indispensable nation on the world stage. That is what the president believes. And that is something that he's heard, to your point, when he was around the world. And he appreciates the cooperation that he's received from our partners and our allies. If you think about Ukraine and how we were able to make NATO stronger and get more than 50 countries behind Ukraine. When you think about what's happening in the Indo-Pacific to the Middle East. And so cannot speak to what the next administration is going to do. I can only speak to what the president was proud that he was able to do over the last 3+ years. And that's going to continue to be our focus. And that's what we believe is the right thing to do on behalf of the American people. Okay, Nancy.
Thank you. Does the president have any regrets about when he chose to leave the race or any regrets about deciding to run for a second term?
The president is very proud of what he was able to accomplish. He was very proud when he made that decision to hand over the torch, pass the torch to the vice president. He believed it was the right decision to make at that time. He believed that she was ready. She was ready to lead on day one, and has been very proud on what he's been able to deliver. And as I was talking to Zeke, or answering Zeke's question moments ago, what we saw 2 nights ago was certainly very much in line to what we've seen in other G7 countries. In incumbencies, the role, the toll that the pandemic took, even though we were able to lead in the world when it comes to the economy, we saw what happened in other G7 countries. And so that is what we believe. Look, there's going to be a lot of punditry, a lot of election experts who are going to have their opinions, who are going to have their thoughts. But the president is very, very proud of what he's been able to accomplish, and incredibly impressed by what the vice president was able to do.
Has the president been hearing from foreign leaders about the outcome of this election, and have they expressed any concerns to him? What has his message been to them?
So, I don't have any calls to read out about the president speaking to foreign leaders. It's only been two days, as I just mentioned, and so don't have anything for you to read out. But it's very much, what I just said moments ago about his message to world leaders about how important it is to have our participation, Americans' leadership on the world stage, and what that means. And we've been able to see that for the last 3+ years, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Indo-Pacific. A lot of that, making NATO stronger, was certainly the president's leadership. And that's what other allies and partners, that's what they rely on us on. And so we're going to continue to do that. That's going to be our focus in the next 74 days. I just don't have anything to read out. But our message is America is going to continue to be there. I can't speak to what the next administration is going to do.
And the president said today that he's going to assist with the transition. Yeah. Has the Trump transition team been responsive? Have they taken the steps that need to be taken so far in order to ensure an orderly transition?
If you're talking about the MOUs that the transition teams need to sign, as of now, the Trump-Vance transition team has not yet entered the agreements with the White House and the General Services. And our Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, reached out to the Trump-Vance co-chairs. And so we're going to leave that line of communications open. We're going to be helpful here. We want to have an effective, efficient transition of power. And so we are ready to provide that. As you know, the president invited the president-elect, Donald Trump, to come to the White House. And so once we lock that in, we certainly will share that with all of you. But we're ready. We're ready to assist. We've been trying to be there and be ready to assist in any transition with this, obviously, this transition. And so we're going to reach out, have those conversations, and so I'll just leave it there. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. Does President Biden believe he could have won if he stayed in this race?
President Biden believes that he made the right decision when he decided to step aside and immediately endorsed the vice president, and you saw the party come behind her, support her, and he believed it was the right thing for the American people. He put himself aside. This was not about him. This is about what was right for the American people, and that's what he believes. He believes it was the right decision to make, and he's very incredibly proud.
And just to follow up on the previous questions,
the president said when he stepped aside that his number one priority was making sure that Vice President Harris would succeed him at the White House. That, of course, is not going to happen. So does he have any regrets?
In which way? Any regrets in
how it all played out? Since
I mean, I said this at the top. This was not the outcome that our team had wanted. So are we disappointed? Yes, we are disappointed. It would be false for me to say that we were not. But we also respect. We respect the outcome of the election. We respect what the American people voted for, wanted. And so because of that, the president is also going to make sure there is a peaceful transfer of power, because that's what the American people deserve. And so, not going to get into analysis here of specifics of what happened, but what we know is the results. And so, are we disappointed? Of course. Of course. But it is important to make sure that what the American people decided on, what it is that they wanted to see, that we respect that, and we'll do that.
And what are the president's top priorities in the next 70 or so days? When Trump comes in, he couldn't do quite a bit of what President Biden has put in place for executive action.
So a couple of things. Again, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals here about what the president-elect is going to do or not do. I can tell you a couple of our focus, things that we're going to focus on in the upcoming 74 days. And we're going to make sure that we keep the government open. We're going to deliver assistance for communities devastated by Hurricanes Helene and Milton and other recent disasters. We're going to pass the NDAA, that's important. And we're also going to make sure that we confirm well-qualified judicial nominees. That's going to be certainly our focus in the next 74 days. And I'm just not going to get into the next administration, what it is that they're going to do or not do. I can speak to what our focus is going to be. Gotcha.
Green, in 2020, President Trump did not invite then President-elect Biden to come to the White House. President Biden has elected now President-elect Trump to come. I'm curious if that was a hard decision for him, given that he didn't have that offer 4 years ago.
So, look, you mean a hard decision for him to make, President Biden to make right now?
Biden now.
I mean, you've covered the president for a long time. I think you covered him when he was vice president. You know Joe Biden, right? You know that this is a person that cares about the American people, that respects the office. And if anything, he has shown that not just the 3+ years, he has shown that as senator, as vice president. And so it is not surprising to me that he would do the right thing on behalf of the American people. This is not about the president-elect, right? This is about the American people. They deserve a peaceful transfer of power. That's what this president understands and wants to make sure that we execute the Biden-Harris administration. And so that is what you saw. That's what you're going to see. That's what you heard from him. You heard that from the vice president as well yesterday when she was at Howard. And that's what you're going to see over the next 74 days. So I think it is in line with who this president is and how he sees the importance of respecting the American people and how it is important to make sure we truly, truly have a peaceful transfer of power. And him being the president, the current president, the onus is on him to make sure that happens.
There's been a lot of criticism in the last couple of days directly addressed at President Biden for some of the questions that have already been asked. Running in the first place or not stepping aside faster. Some of that criticism has also been directed at his team and the advisors around him for advising him to do what he did. Can you address that criticism?
To do what he did, meaning?
Running again, not stepping aside faster, and showing what some people say, quoting folks here, an arrogance of believing he was the only one who could beat Donald Trump.
I mean, you said something at the end that I do want to just kind of reiterate and remind folks, and it was a good reminder to me, which is like, look, This is the president who has been the only person has been able to beat Donald Trump. I mean, that is true. In 2020, he was able to do that. There were more than 20 candidates who tried to beat him, and he was the one that has been able to do that. I talked about what happened in the midterms, how it was historical for a new administration in more than 60 years to have been able to have that type of outcome from the 2022 midterms when everybody said it would be a red wave. What I will also say is that he's incredibly proud of the campaign that this vice president ran. Incredibly proud of her. And when he did decide to step aside, he immediately endorsed her, and the party unified behind her. They did.
He said that. My question is just if you can or want to address the criticism that's being directed at him for this loss.
There's going to be a lot of people who are going to say a lot of things. There's going to be election experts who are going to look under the hood in the next couple of days and weeks and months, as I've said already, and they're going to have their opinion on this race. What I can say is that, and this is something the president says all the time, you get knocked down, you get back up. And the president said this moments again, this is a defeat, but we are not defeated. And the president believed he made the right decision on behalf of the American people, on behalf of this country, to step aside. And we saw what happened in 2022 after the midterms. We saw where we were at that time. And this is how elections are. This is. It ebbs and flows. You win, you lose. And this is where we are today. What we're going to focus on is respecting the American people and how we move forward in the next 74 days.
Thank you, Karine. You talked about the influence that the 2022 midterms had on the president's thinking to decide to run for re-election. But around that time in 2023, polls showed that roughly 80% of Americans believed at that time that the president was too old to serve another term. Did he believe those voters were wrong?
What he believed is what 14 million voters decided in the primary to make him and the vice president, obviously she was on the ticket, the nominee. That's what happened. 14 million for this current past primary. 14 million Americans decided that. So they made their decision on who they wanted. They did. That was decided. Now, as we know, in July, the president made a decision to step aside, and he immediately, again, decided to, without thought, without, second guessing, endorse the vice president. So you had 14 million Americans who made that decision in the primary.
But around that time in 2023, the president's team also very firmly encouraged other rising stars, luminaries in the party, people who had participated in the primaries in the 2020 cycle, to rally behind the president and not to consider their own ambitions. Was that the wrong call?
I'm not going to get into conversations. I'm not going to get into that reporting. It is not unusual for people to rally behind the leader of the party. In this case is Joe Biden for the Democratic Party. It is not unusual for that to happen. I'm not going to relitigate or get into what was said, not said. I actually don't have any information on that. What I can say is what the president decided to do, what the president believed, and what the president's going to continue to do is put the American people first. That is the most important thing for him.
Does the president have worries about what the country and what this office will look like after January 20th?
Look, the president is going to certainly, again, respect what majority of Americans decided. They decided they wanted Donald Trump to be president, and he's going to respect that. I don't want to get into hypotheticals about what's going to happen in the next administration, not happen in the next administration. We are proud. The president is incredibly proud of what he has been able to do for the American people. And that's going to continue to be his focus. I talked about the legislative focuses that we're going to have in the next 74 days. And he wants to continue to implement those historic legislations, now laws that he was able to get done. And, the next administration is going to inherit a strong economy, which he's very proud about. But I think for now I'm going to leave it there.
And does the president hope to meet with the president-elect before leaving to go to South America where he'll meet with world leaders?
What I can tell you, it'll be in the near future. We're going to work that out. Certainly his staff is going to work with the staff of the president-elect to find a time that works for both. I can't say the timing just yet, but certainly you all will know when that occurs. But I can say for sure it will be in the near future. Okay.
Thank you, Karine. So does the president believe that he could have beat Donald Trump?
What the president believes is that he did the right thing for the American people. I'm not going to get into, what could have, would have. He believed he did the right thing. He believed that the vice president ran a great campaign. He's incredibly proud of what she's been able to do and how she was able to unify the party and how she stepped up and was able to get running with a impressive campaign. And so that's what he believed. He thought it was the right thing to do. And here's the thing, the party unified behind her. And I think that's what is important. He believed he did the right thing.
So Republicans have threatened to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. Mm-hmm. Does the White House have any plans to take any actions to safeguard some of the measures, such as clean energy investments, for instance?
So a couple of things. I do want to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. That is a popular piece of legislation, obviously, that became law. That is, when you think about climate change, the most comprehensive law to be passed to deal with climate change. I talked about beating Big Pharma. When you think about Medicare now being able to negotiate, and not only that, you're obviously to negotiate to lower cost. I mean, there is so much that comes out of the Inflation Reduction Act. Only Democrats voted for it. You have heard us warn about Congress trying to repeal that, and it is popular. We saw what happened when they tried to repeal the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which became popular and helped tens of millions of people get health care. And so that should be a warning for them. That should be a warning for them, not to go after something that actually helps the American people, that actually delivers on key priorities, and that is actually popular. So I'll leave it there. Okay, John.
Thanks, Karine. One of the issues debated, discussed quite a bit during the course of the campaign was the issue of reproductive rights. Is the White House president concerned that with a Republican in the White House, Republicans controlling the Senate, a super conservative majority on the Supreme Court, at the very least, we don't know what's going to happen in the House, that reproductive freedoms for women will be rolled back?
I mean, that is something that we have said consistently that we are concerned about. I believe 3 national bans on abortion were introduced in Congress. This is something that Republican elected officials continue to go after, the rights for women to make decisions on their own body. Very difficult decision, a decision that should be kept between a woman, her family, and her doctor. And so, it is incredibly concerning. And we're talking about women across the country whose health could be at risk. And so what I can say is the president and the vice president is going to continue to stand with majority of Americans on calling on Congress to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade. That's what we want to see. Are we concerned? Yes, we're concerned. Nothing changes about our concern about that post-election. And Republicans in Congress have made themselves very, very clear. And so we're going to do everything that we can. When we have taken steps to protect women and this decision, important critical decisions that they have to make. And so that will certainly continue.
You said the vice president ran a great campaign, and yet she underperformed in every state compared with President Biden when he ran in 2020. Why do you suppose that was?
I'm not going to do punditry from here. That is not something that I'm going to do. I'm not going to dive into the data. I'm not going to do that. There's going to be plenty of time for election experts to look under the hood, to tinker around in it, figure out what happened. I'll leave that to them to deal with. But I would say she ran an impressive campaign. Some of you reported that. What she was able to do, it was impressive. how the amount of money she was able to raise, how she was able to put together a campaign around her, right? A campaign that obviously the president built and was happy to hand that over to her, and she stepped up to the moment. Now there's going to be a lot that's going to be discussed about what happened, the data, exactly what occurred, and so I'm going to leave that to them. But what I will say, and I think this is just a data point that I've been talking about what we've seen in G7 countries, what we've seen with incumbencies after the pandemic, because what the disruptions that the pandemic caused, even though we did what we did everything that we could to have policies to get us out of the pandemic and leading the world on the economic front, there were political toll, right? The pandemic led to some political tolls for incumbencies. That's just a data point that I'm sharing with all of you that has been consistent to what we've seen with G7 countries. And so I'll just leave it there. Go ahead, Karen.
Thanks, Kareem. You heard the president say recently in the summer that the former President Trump's vision for America is dark and that it's not who we are. But given the results on Tuesday night, does he think he misjudged where the country is right now?
Look, the country spoke. They did. Majority of the country spoke. They were very clear on where they wanted to see the direction of this country. And we're going to respect that. We're going to respect that. But to your question about what the president said, the president always believes it is important to be honest. He sees it as an obligation to be honest to the American people. And that's what you heard from the president that said there. But again, American people made a decision. We're going to respect that. We're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. That is something the president is going to lead, right? He's going to lead by example. That's what you're going to continue to see in the next 74 days.
Thanks, Barry. Picking up on that one just a little bit, earlier you said that the White House's view when it came to reproductive rights did not change from pre and post-election. The president repeatedly referred to Donald Trump as a threat to democracy over and over again. And this morning, though, he said we're all going to be okay. So, was that just political rhetoric?
I mean, if you know the president, you know that him saying we're all going to be okay, he's an optimist, right? He believes when you get knocked down, you get back up. We lost, but we're not defeated, right? We suffered a defeat, but we're not defeated. And that is the president's optimistic nature. And it's very similar to the question that I just got from Karen. The president believes, as you asked me about the threat to democracy, believes in being an obligation to be honest to the American people. And we cannot forget, it wasn't, just really quickly, it wasn't just the president who was saying this, right? I mean, you had the former president, now the president-elect, talked about an enemy within. Right? He talked about mistreating Americans who disagree with him, about terminating the Constitution. We heard from his former Chief of Staff, John Kelly. And let's not forget the former Defense Secretary, Mark Esper. We heard from them and what they had to say. So we weren't the only ones saying that. And the president does believe that he needs to be honest, has an obligation to be honest to the American people. Now we're in a situation where the American people have spoken, and we're going to respect the outcome of the election 2 days ago, because we have to respect our election system. It's important to do that. And at the same time, he's still a leader. He wants to make sure that he shows optimism, right? He wants to make sure that people understand that there is a tomorrow, right? There is going to be another opportunity to have your voices heard. And so that is very much quintessential Joe Biden, I think, if you have followed him and really reported up on him for the past several years.
To be clear, do you still believe that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy?
I think that the president was very clear what he stated, and it was very honest. And what we are trying to do, and I get your question, what we are trying to do is respect what the American people decided. We're not trying to cause any divisions here. We're trying to be very respectful of what the American people, but again, when he spoke, he wanted to be honest with the American people and shared what he believed, and it wasn't just him. But right now, we want to move forward. We want to make sure there's a peaceful transfer of power. That's what the American people deserve.
On another topic, do the election results ramp up the urgency to get more aid to Ukraine?
So look, I think in September, the president talked about surging aid to Ukraine, and we've been hearing us to kind of announce aid to Ukraine over the past several weeks, if not months, and so that's not going to change. We're going to surge and get that out there to Ukraine. We understand how important it is to make sure they have what they need. And so that hasn't changed. That is no different. And so we're going to surging that aid to Ukraine. We're going to continue to make sure that they have the strongest, everything that they need on the battlefield to push back against Russia's aggression. So that certainly doesn't change. And we have taken action to strengthen Ukraine's air defenses and enhance their battlefield capabilities. And so we are committed. We continue to be committed. But we've been surging that aid for some time. Like I said, when the president made an announcement back on September 26th. And so that's going to continue for sure.
And one last one, if
Sure.
I may.
Yeah,
Senator
sure.
Bernie Sanders, he says that he has suggested that party leadership abandon the working class. What's the White House response?
I mean, look, obviously we respect Senator Sanders. He's been a partner with us in many of the important historic pieces of legislation that we were able to get passed. Certainly the senator has been a partner with us. Here's what I will say to that is the president has been called the most pro-union president when it comes to working class, right? Pro-union, if you think about unions, we're talking about the working class, right? And he's done everything that he could to make sure that we created jobs where you don't need a college degree, right? Think about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, you think about the CHIPS and Science Act. Those legislation created jobs, are going to create thousands of jobs where you literally could get a six-figure salary a year and not have to have a college education. And the president created 16 million jobs in the past more than 3+ years. And it is because wages went up, right? Unemployment has gone down, and he believes everybody deserves a shot. You hear him say that. Everybody deserves a shot. And building an economy from the bottom up, making sure that we are continuing to grow the middle class. I think you see that in his policies. And so, respectfully disagree with the senator, and I think you can talk to unions, you could see the jobs that we've been able to create to disprove that. And this is a president that cares certainly about the people who do get forgotten, the people who are not able to make ends meet. He understands what it's like to sit around a kitchen table trying to figure out how you're going to pay for a medical bill, how are you going to pay for your kids' school, how are you going to pay for groceries. And so does the vice president. Go ahead, Kim.
President-elect Trump has heard from a number of world leaders since the election, Xi, Macron, Zelensky, Netanyahu. What is the level of concern that Trump may try to conduct foreign policy in this transition period and get in the way of some of the president's foreign policy priorities?
I mean, look, it's not unusual, right, for a president-elect to hear for world leaders, especially after an election win. I don't have anything beyond that. I'm not going to speculate beyond that, and so I'm just gonna leave it there.
And does the president see this election as a setback to some of the efforts he's been making to try to get the hostages released, to try to bring peace to Gaza?
So look, since you mentioned Gaza, we're going to continue to work to get to advance diplomatic efforts, obviously to end the war in Gaza and secure the release of all the hostages. That's what we're going to continue to do, and as well as our efforts to get to a resolution in Lebanon that ensures citizens on both sides of the blue line can safely return home. And so that's going to continue in the next 74 days. That's going to continue to be a focus, and that's going to continue to be a commitment.
Does this make it harder, though?
It's asking for speculation. I'm not going to speculate. All I can speak to is what we're committed to do, but that doesn't change. That certainly doesn't change. Go ahead, Tam.
Thank you. As you said, the Trump team hasn't yet signed those memorandums of understanding with GSA. Does that in any way impede your ability to help there be a smooth transition? Are there any practical implications in terms of what this White House is able to do?
Okay, a couple of things. I'm glad you asked this. So there are two memoranda of understanding under the President Transition Act. The first one is the MOU that's with the GSA, which offers services like office space, equipment, and supplies. And then the second MOU is with the White House, which outlines access to agency employees, facilitates an information. So yesterday, the Chief of Staff here, Jeff Zients, reached out to Trump-Vance transition co-chairs, that's Howard Lutnick and also Linda McMahon, to make clear our intention to lead an orderly transition and reiterate the role the agreements play in initiating transition activities. Zients, Jeff, acknowledged the public comments in mid-October by co-chairs that they intend to execute on the MOUs, which both parties in the past transition have agreed to. So he stressed that the White House and the administration, we're ready to assist. They said that they were going to, and so we'll leave that to them.
What happens if they don't get signed?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals from here.
Anything now?
I mean, look, we're here to assist. We want to have a peaceful transition of power. We want to make sure they have what they need. I laid out, there was a reason I wanted to lay out the two MOUs for folks to understand. And look, they said they have an intent to do so. We're going to leave it to them. That is really a question for them to answer. We are ready. We are prepared. We want this to work. And so we stand by that.
And we heard from the president today, however, he did not take questions. We're hearing from you. We would like to hear from the president. It's traditional for the president to come out. It would be much easier to ask him, for instance, how he feels about the election. Sure. Are you going to make that happen?
He will be looking forward to talking to all of you soon. And when that happens, we will let you know. You're talking about like a actual press conference?
Press conference.
Okay, we have 74 days. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Karine. Does President Biden... does President Biden fear for Ukraine's future after Donald Trump's victory, given that he's, talked about cutting aid, about pushing through a peace deal?
Look, I've been pretty consistent the past couple of questions. I don't want to speculate what the administration is going to do or not do. I'm going to focus on today. I'm going to focus on the next 74 days. That's what I can speak to. As you've seen, this president, our allies and partners have rallied behind Ukraine, stood up to Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine, building a coalition of more than 50 countries to make sure Ukraine had what it needed on the battlefield. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to surge assistance, support that they need to Ukraine so that they are able to defend their freedom and fight for their independence and protect themselves from Russia's aggression. That is what we're committed to. That's what we're going to continue to do. I'm just not going to stand here and speak to what the administration is going to do or not going to do, the upcoming administration.
I'm going to ask you to speculate one more time about something else.
Sure.
On a related note, Vladimir Putin said today he was ready to talk to Donald Trump. Would that be a good idea, do you think?
I'm just not going to speak to that. I mean, he's the president-elect. That's what the American people decided. I can speak to what we're going to do the next 74 days, our continued commitment to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to beat back Putin's aggression. And that's what I'm going to speak to. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. I have two questions on pardons. The first, does the president intend to pardon any administration officials or people that Trump has threatened with any sort of legal actions? He's got 74 days, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I know pardons is going to be a big part of the questions that I get here over the next several weeks and couple of months that we have. I don't have anything to share or any thought process on pardons. Once we have something to share, we certainly will share that.
Secondly, his son, Hunter, is also up for being sentenced next month. Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
You mentioned 2 MOUs.
Yeah.
Can you give us a flavor of what might be subsequent MOUs that might be coming up?
I was talking about the transition and how that there's 2 MOUs that are related to the Transition Act, Transition Presidential Act, and that's what I was speaking to. I don't have anything else beyond that. This is part of the Transition Presidential Act, and that's what I was speaking of. I just wanted to make sure that there was an understanding that there's 2 MOUs. I don't have anything beyond that. Okay.
Is the president still planning to attend APEC and the G20 summits next week? And if so, given there's such little time in office, what does he aim to do there, accomplish there?
So, look, he is planning to attend both conferences, if you will. He's going to be going to Peru and Brazil to attend those conferences respectfully. We will have more to share. I don't have anything beyond that, but I can confirm that the president will be attending. Okay, Anita in the back.
Thank you. 2 foreign policy questions. First of all, what are your top foreign policy objectives in the next 74 days, especially vis-a-vis the Americans being held in Gaza and in Ukraine? What are you doing to work to, if you can't solve these problems in the next 74 days, to handle it in the next administration?
So look, the president's going to continue, as more broadly speaking of, in more general terms, speaking of the president's focus on foreign policy. He's going to continue to push forward with the progress that we've made over the 3+ years, and that's been on an array of important issues. Whether I've been talking about Ukraine, whether it's continuing to strengthen our alliances and partnership, standing with Ukraine, making sure they have what they need on the ground to beat back against Putin's aggression, tackling challenges we face in the range from Indo-Pacific to the Middle East. So that will continue to be the president's focus on foreign policy matters, certainly that are important to the American people. I spoke to Gaza already when I was asked a question about Gaza. We're going to have those diplomatic conversations. We want to make sure that we bring the hostages home. That is all the hostages. That is a focus. And let's not forget Lebanon as well. We want to make sure there's a resolution there. And so that's a lot. That is nothing new to what the president has been focused on for the past several months or past 3+ years, and so we're going to continue to do that.
With the next administration may be finalizing the deal and getting the credit for that if you line it up?
I mean, look, this is about what's right for the American people. This is right. I mean, I just said moments ago the president is very proud to be handing over the strongest economy. The next administration is going to inherit a strong economy, and the president's proud about that. He's proud that he's been able to do the work so that the next administration will inherit that. And so, look, we're going to focus on what we can do right now in the next 74 days. And everything that this president does, every focus that he has is on the American people, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
The APEC at the G20, what is the president's message to China and the other 19 members of the G20, especially vis-a-vis climate change, which, President Trump has a very different...
Yeah, and we'll have more to share on what the goals and what the message is going to be when the president travels next week. I was able to confirm that he'll be attending those 2 conferences. We'll have more to share for you all, but I think we've been very clear on our messaging when it comes to the Indo-Pacific, when it comes to China. I think we've been very clear on that, but we will certainly have more to share. Okay, Jared.
Considering the outcome of the election, what is the White House's message to Black and Brown communities, LGBTQ Americans who are fearful of the vulnerabilities of a Trump administration, given some policy proposals like eliminating DEI mechanisms, banning LGBTQ, bans in healthcare and classrooms, and how is the president thinking about ways he can advance or preserve civil rights, his agenda in these final days?
So look, the president and the vice president, as you know, have put civil rights as one of the top issues in their administration, and we have taken action to make sure that people who are vulnerable and did not have protections or needed additional protections, we made sure that we did everything that we can with this administration so that people in those vulnerable communities feel protected. And that's something that the president and the vice president believe in, are very proud of, and continue to do. And when it comes to this election, I said this, we did not have the desired outcome. There are some people who are celebrating and some people who are heartbroken by this moment. And we understand that. But the reality is majority of the American people voted. And so we're going to respect that. I don't have any new policies to speak to. But for those who are hurting, we see you, we hear you, we understand what you're going through. But don't have anything else to speak to.
One more question. There are reports of racist text messages targeting Black Americans being sent across the country, particularly on college campuses, Ohio State, University of Alabama, Clemson University. And these messages are claiming to be from Trump supporters, indicating that recipients have been selected to, quote, pick cotton on plantations. These messages were quickly condemned by campus and civil rights leaders, but is the White House tracking this, and what concern does the White House have about the outcome of the election leading to heightened hate speech?
Well, look, I have not spoken to the team here about that reporting. It does sound concerning, obviously. I would have to go back and get a better sense of what is indeed happening and what, the facts are. Just going to the broader question, it is important for every community to feel safe, to feel protected. That is something that this president has done and the vice president has done over the 3.5 years. We understand how vulnerable communities can feel, and it is important that we do that. And I think that's why in the next 74 days, the president wants to lead by example. That's why we keep talking about a peaceful transfer of power. That's why we keep talking about the importance of the election system and the results, because he believes it's important to, again, lead by example as president of the United States. And that's what we're going to do here. Again, I can't speak to the reportings directly. If it indeed is what's happening, it is concerning. And so let me talk to the team and get you a fuller answer. Okay, go ahead.
What will Kamala focus on in next 74 days? And will she spoke with J.D. Vance?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you're talking about the vice president?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I talked about what the administration, which obviously includes the vice president, what we're going to focus on the next 74 days. I will have more to share with you about a potential meeting with the vice president and the incoming vice president, J.D. Vance. Don't have anything to share with you at this time. Go ahead, Brian, in the back.
Thanks a lot, Karine. Donald Trump had classified documents at Mar-a-Lago that he did not secure. Does the president have concerns about classified information being given to Donald Trump in the next 74 days as part of the transition, that Donald Trump would not take steps to protect that?
Look, I'm going to leave it to ODNI to speak to whatever information, classified information. I'm not going to get into speculation from here, and just leave it there for now. Yeah, sure.
President Biden invites Trump to the White House. Will he also invite the other living presidents? Will he invite Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton to be there as well?
I don't have anything beyond President Biden inviting the president-elect when they spoke recently. I don't have anything more. Obviously, when that meeting lands in the very near future, we will share that. The teams are working on it. I just don't have anything beyond the president inviting the president-elect. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. First, a quick follow-up. Does the president still stand by his description of the former president, now president-elect, as an existential threat to democracy?
I don't have anything else to share beyond what I said. The president believes, when he said it at the time, he believes he had an obligation to be honest with the American people. I laid out what people who, former staffers of the former president said. We're talking about John Kelly, former chief of staff. We're talking about the former defense secretary. They were very clear. And we also heard words that the president-elect said, enemy within, going after people who disagree with him. And so the president is always going to be very honest with the American people. I don't have anything else to share beyond that. Look, we are being very clear here, right? The outcome was not what we wanted. And the American people have made a decision, and we want to respect the decision that the American people have made, and we are going to make sure that the American people get what they deserve, which is a peaceful transfer of power. And we're going to continue to focus on issues that matter. We believe that matter to the American people in the next 74 days.
So it sounds like his assessment hasn't changed.
He was being honest. He has an obligation, and he was being honest with the American people, and he will continue to do so.
A question about the peaceful transition.
Sure.
What is President Biden's message to career civil servants who will carry over into the next administration? Does President Biden believe that they should be fully cooperative as the next president seeks to put his agenda into action?
Fully cooperative.
Not slow things down.
Oh, no,
Republicans are
Yeah, I
voiced
mean,
a lot
look,
of
we're
frustration.
saying that we want a good, a peaceful transition. We want an effective, efficient transition. That's what we're saying, and that's in the president's administration. Career, political. We want to make sure that that transition happens in an orderly way, and we're not looking to slow down anything. We want it to happen. That's what the American people deserve. This is not political here, folks. This is not about politics. This is about the right thing to do for the American people. They've made a decision, and we're respecting that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know how much gets here.
Yeah. Are members of the Trump team traveling with the president and government officials to Lima to the APEC summit?
I'm sorry. What's the?
Are members of the Trump team traveling, or are they going to be in Lima?
You're going to have to ask the Trump team. I can only speak for the president. Yeah. Good, Jackie.
Thank you, just to follow up on the pardon question, is a commutation also still off the table?
For who are you talking about? Oh, no. I mean, we're not. That's not what we're going to do.
So you had said on Air Force One that the president would not consider a commutation of his sentence.
Yeah, that
you're saying that still stands? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I heard you earlier in the briefing talking about the pandemic's role in the outcome of this election. And it sounds like that is being looked at internally as potentially one of the causes of this outcome. But Richie Torres, the congressman, tweeted, Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police or from the river to the sea or Latinx. Is the administration, campaign, the Democratic Party looking at the pandemic as the cause rather than, is that easier than looking in the mirror?
Let's step back here. I think I've been, and the president and the vice president has been pretty clear in understanding that the American people have spoken and respecting that. I think we have tried to be incredibly respectful of what happened 2 nights ago. And we're going to continue to do that. And I'm not going to speak to every person in the Democratic Party who has an opinion or a thought. I'm just not. It is not something that I'm going to do. I talked about the political toll on incumbent parties around the world as a data point, right? As something that we have seen pretty consistently with G7 allies in this time. And obviously, one of the things that occurred was the pandemic. It did. It caused disruption. It caused the supply chain to be disrupted and caused the economy to be turned upside down. While we put policies, and we are, in fact, leading the world on the economy, it doesn't stop the fact that there has been a political toll for incumbents. That is something that I'm telling you as a data point to share, because we know that you guys would have questions. That's a data point that I'm using. And I'm also saying that there's going to be election experts in the next days, weeks, months, who are going to, again, looking under the hood, kick the tires, trying to figure out exactly what happened 2 nights ago. And so they're the pundits. They're going to speak to that. They're the experts, and so we'll have more information as they look at the data. And so we'll leave that to them. And so I'm offering you our perspective, our thoughts, how we're going to move forward in the next 74 days. And I think what Americans should be assured of is that this is a president that's going to put the American people first. That's what people can be assured of.
Is examination happening at all inside, though? Because as Gabe mentioned, you know, this administration message to millions of Americans that they're going to wake up day after the election if Trump won and have their rights stripped away, that democracy would crumble, and the president said today we're going to be okay. So how do you square that?
I can square that. I'm going to square that in a way that hopefully makes sense, because I've been answering this question multiple times. The American people made the decision. There was an election 2 nights ago. There was. And it was a free and fair election. And we respect the election process. We do. And Americans spoke. And so the job of the president is to make sure we respect that. The job of the president is to make sure that we have a peaceful transfer of power. That is what the American people deserve. And that's what we're going to, it's not complicated. It's truly as simple as that. As simple as that. The president called the president-elect, invited him to the White House. You know why? Because that's customary. That is customary. That is what you do. If you respect what the American people decided, that's what you do. And that's what the president's going to make sure that the Trump transition has what it needs, which is being led obviously by our.
Pendant que vous regardez la vidéo, regardez à droite, vous voyez un bouton qui est en noir qui marqué souscribir-me. Ça c'est espagnol. Si c'est en anglais, il tape marqué subscribe. Si c'est en français, il tape marqué s'abonner. Cliquez sur le bouton ça. Là, on finit cliquer sur lui, vous voyez une petite cloche bon côté. Cliquez sur cette cloche là tout. Sur cette cloche là, vous voyez abonner automatiquement le passe sous première option. Ou après flèche là sous deuxième option. Retirez flèche là sous deuxième option, mettez-le sous première option que c'est tout. Ça veut dire chaque fois monte une vidéo, ou avez joindre une notification. Et puis pas oublier la gon like en bas vidéo ça.
Et guys, ça qu'a fait ça c'est Maestro que vous oubliez nous même cas mes amis moi gon bonne nouvelle pour ou même qui t'a rester informé sur toute nouvelle qui passé à l'étranger ou bien en Haïti, eh bien li par l'autre côté c'est branché channel pour là qui c'est MPH01. Là yo bonne nouvelle là sans vous monter clean et puis propre et yo informer tout sur tout ça qui a passé sur question immigration dans pays États-Unis. Invitez amour à l'abonner kounya, activer la cloche notification pour pas rater aucune vidéo Léo la gueule. Yo live 2 fois pendant la journée. 7h30 dans matin et puis 3h30 dans la soirée. Invitez les amis faire ça, c'est m'kak vous. Là, on va une nouvelle là sans vous remonter. Aïe!